All right. I think, Megan, behind the scenes, we're getting the word we're ready to start. You ready to go?
It's go time. Let's do this.
All right. Let's jump in. We want to welcome you all to Come Together, our new free weekly webinar series. At Duarte, we are opening our doors in these unprecedented times to show you our own strategies and our techniques for effective communication, virtual and otherwise. So here's how it'll work. Each week, we'll spend about 30 minutes with some of Duarte's communication experts. We'll talk through relevant topics, we'll answer your hard-hitting questions, and we'll take you behind the scenes here at Duarte to see how we solve the communication challenges of the world's top brands and thought leaders every day. I'm Doug Neff. I'm Duarte's content director, and I'll be your host every week. Virtual communications is a big topic. Virtual communication is a big topic with a lot of little subtopics, and we have a lot to say about all of them. You may have even joined the nearly 3,000 people who attended our March 20th webinar on virtual presenting. If not, you can find it on our website and watch it now. During that webinar, you asked a lot of questions about virtual meetings, which are sort of like presentations, but not exactly. So today we're going to talk about our approach to leading virtual meetings. And I've brought a very special guest expert today. She's a senior content developer and executive speaker coach with us here at Duarte. Welcome, Dr. Maegan Stevens.
Hello, friends.
Megan, let's start by setting the stage for this topic a little bit.
Well, virtual meetings are nothing new, but many of us have found ourselves in these virtual meetings much more than we were before COVID-19. And there's no data point that you need to understand it, but this is one that really caught our eye. Cisco CEO Chuck Robbins told CNBC that in just the first 11 days of March, there were 5.5 billion WebEx minutes. That's wild.
Yeah.
Now, we're a communications firm, so we are platform agnostic. We will use all of them in any day. I might wake up and start in a Zoom, then I'm hopping on over to a WebEx, then I got to jump into a Blue Jeans, and then I'm closing out my day in a Google Hangouts.
And many more.
Here, brand new. We have not done this before. So bear with us as we work our way through a whole new platform, but we're excited to be here with you.
Now, Megan, do you think of every interaction we have with someone over one of those platforms? Do you think of every interaction as a meeting, as a virtual meeting?
We don't. So I know a lot of people are getting together with family and friends and even colleagues and playing games and sharing stories and having happy hours, and we love that. But by our definition of a meeting, that's not it. We see meetings as an opportunity for you to try to move people or projects from point A to point B. Now, I'm not saying stop doing all the fun connection you're doing. Even we at Duarte, right after the shelter in place was put in place in the Bay Area, we did a company-wide group sing-along over a virtual conference because we missed each other so much and it had only been a day already. So please keep doing that. But we didn't need effective meeting leadership to be successful in that moment. So if you're thinking to yourself, am I trying to gain consensus? Am I trying to move a project forward? Am I trying to get people to go from one place to another? Yes, that's a meeting. And if you're saying, I've got some meetings that don't do anything that sounds like any of those things, please just send an email for all of our sake. Cancel the meeting. We know a lot of people have recurring meetings that were on their calendars when we were back in office that might not need to be there anymore. So some of this is a little bit terminology, but overall, it's something we want you to think about.
I love it. I think we'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes this morning or this evening, depending on where you are, sharing our recommendations and strategies, all the tips and strategies you brought with you. And then we'll turn it over to questions from our audience. We've got a good-sized auditorium out there watching what we're doing. Before we get started, we'd like to make sure we're receiving questions. So you guys are putting lots of great comments in the chats. Go ahead and send us questions too, and Emily, our producer, will help us screen those and drop them into a separate window for us to address at the end of the webinar. And I said everything I said right now for a very specific purpose, and Megan will say more about that later. We'd also love to know how many virtual meetings you're leading every week. So if you could drop that in the chat, give us just a number and let us know what that number is for you, about how many meetings you're in every week. And Emily will let us know some of your responses. All right, you ready to jump in, Maegan?
I'm ready to do it. So whether or not you are leading the meetings now, or you recognize as part of your career growth that leading meetings is something you're going to want to do in the future, we've put our recommendations into 3 categories for you. Lead with empathy, set the stage for collaboration, like Doug just did, and then get results.
Awesome. Sounds perfect.
Kicking it off with empathy. Empathy is the core of everything we practice and preach at Duarte. If you don't have empathy for your meeting participants, this is not going to be a great meeting, because if there were no meeting participants, there wouldn't be a meeting. We are all dealing with a lot of uncertainty and upheaval right now, and the small act of being empathetic gives a thoughtfulness and kindness that can go a long way. We know people are distracted. They are gathering children at home. They're running late from meetings. Many of us who are new to remote work, myself included, found myself sitting behind a screen way more than I was used to in the office.
I love the idea of just being thoughtful and kind when you're scheduling meetings, when you're getting ready for meetings. And that, for us at Duarte, that's really the heart of empathy for us. You know, I see people in the chat saying 15 meetings, 40-ish meetings, 1 million meetings a week. You know, there's a lot of these going on, and there's a strain on us to participate in all these meetings, especially when they're all virtual. So I love that.
Yeah, and so if you're thinking about where do we get started with that empathy, here's one thing we want you to reframe your role as the meeting leader. You are the mentor of that meeting. That's how we want you to think about yourself. If you have read any of the books by our CEO, Nancy Duarte, or you've joined one of our in-person or new virtual workshops, you would know that we see speakers as the mentor. And so we are seeing meeting facilitators as the mentor. And your job as mentor is to guide the hero, the attendees of your meeting, on a journey to greatness. Now, if you just kind of scoffed and said, come on, Maegan, greatness, this is my bi-weekly team meeting, I hear you. All right, but we don't think that's so far-fetched, because every single meeting you lead, you are asking human beings to take time out of their busy days and their busy lives to work on something with you. In that context, why would you ever shoot for anything less than your best when you lead a meeting? And as the mentor, you have that power to lead with empathy. And the first thing is, what do they hear? And the next thing is, what do they see?
Love that.
So think about, what are they going to hear? Oh, you know, my least favorite icebreaker in the world is, oh, how's the weather there? It does not work now. I don't know how the weather is. I'm not allowed to leave. So let's think of a better icebreaker to kick off our meetings. A great way to do this is to have a solid empathy check-in when you start your meetings. The easy way out is to do a, how are you doing? I'm good, I'm great, how about you? And have a little repartee. But we've got a stronger strategy for you. The first is to start with a very clear question. And you can make that question less common, the better. My advisor, when I was in graduate school, used to ask, how is your world? And I don't know, man, it just kind of like, relaxed my shoulders, and it prompted a different response from me.
That's
Next,
great.
be assertive. Make sure you are really connecting to the moment and the situation and listening to the person who's answering. And finally, make sure you are okay first. Now, this idea of okay first is something Doug brought up when he and I were in a one-on-one roundtable. We're both executive coaches, so we spend 1 hour every week meeting with other coaches, talking about strategies, what we're thinking. And Doug, I'd love if you could share just a little bit about your perspective on getting okay.
Sure. Yeah. We don't fly in airplanes as much as we used to right now in these times. But when you do, you hear this line every single time. If you're with someone else, put on your own oxygen mask before you put on theirs. And that's because you need to be okay first. We can't have you both passing out on the airplane. So make yourself okay, then make others okay. And when you're the mentor of the meeting, when you're leading the meeting, you have to start off okay and give everyone else in that room or that virtual room space for them to be however they are, so then you can lead them on that great journey that you just described. So a couple of things I do is I'm doing a check-in with people around a room or a virtual room. I'm having an interaction with each individual, I'm not just listening to what's going on. When they say how their world is, I'll say thank you after that personally to them. And then I'll call out the next person's name. So I'm establishing that mentor relationship with everyone in the room and letting everyone know that I'm okay too, that I can hold everything that's going on here in the room for everybody. That's part of my job.
As someone who is part of multiple virtual meetings that Doug leads, I can tell you it is not just a breath of fresh air. I can just feel everything relax at the check-ins that we have. It's very powerful. It's a great way to be the first thing I hear in a meeting.
That's good to hear, Megan.
Now, the other part we want you to think about is what your participants are going to see when they get into that meeting. And we want it to be your beautiful smiling face. So turn the camera on. Oh, man, I know there's a struggle and I know we don't want to do it, but if you are leading the meeting, let's have the default be turn the camera on. We've made it a default practice across Duarte right now. Now, there are good reasons why sometimes people can't have their camera on, but let's default to camera on when we are the meeting leaders. It helps increase connection. And it's not just have the camera on. Doug, you gave a webinar March 20th with our colleague Nicole, and y'all had beautiful eye contact. So talk a little bit about making strong eye contact in the virtual setting.
Yeah, tools help here a lot. And some of you may notice I'm having some issues today because I'm getting used to this new platform. I'm not as familiar with it, but what I like to do is there's always a selfie window where you can see your own video reflected back at you. And that needs to be up as close to the camera as possible. So on my display, the camera is indicated by a little green dot, a little green light, and that's the eyes of my audience. When I'm looking at that green dot, I'm looking at you. And I want my reference image, and ideally any speaker notes that I have, I want them up as close to that green dot as I can possibly get them. And you'll see when people have it out of line, or sometimes people have this, their camera's over here, and their notes are over here, and they're doing a tennis match while they're talking with you. But put everything as close as you can to that camera, and that'll help you have more natural eye contact.
All right, we're going to move on to the last suggestion for you. It is my favorite suggestion. I've been shouting it around town with people. Our last recommendation is one we are in the process of implementing at Duarte. I recognize it's not an easy one, but it's one I think could be really beneficial to people. It is to shorten our meetings from the old default of 30 minutes and 50 minutes to 25 minutes. 30 minutes and 60 minutes to 25 minutes and 50 minutes. And you're like, what? I know. Well, David Silverman wrote an HBR piece about this back in 2009. What have we been doing for the last 11 years, people? Somewhere around 2011, 2012, Google Calendars put out a speedy meeting default. So all of your meetings would instantly only ever be scheduled for 25 or 50, and then you could change the default. And right now, I can tell you, as someone who was an in-office worker who's now become a remote worker, I might sit in this chair all day long. You'll see me drink this coffee. What you don't see is behind me is a French press and a carafe of backup coffee. Sometimes I don't leave this chair for hours at a time. And that would have never happened in the office because I would have walked to a conference room to take a meeting. And that split second of time, I didn't realize it was saving my eyes, but it really is.
Makes a difference just to get up and walk from one conference room to another. And when we don't have that here. Yeah. What about for the people who say, oh my gosh, my 30 and 60 minute meetings already run too long. How am I going to shorten them? I'm losing valuable productivity.
I am so empathetic to this, but the way I framed it when I brought this pitch to my leadership was at some point we have to be honest about our productivity and our effectiveness levels. Is it effective to sit in 7 hours of back-to-back meetings, skip out on all of our follow-ups, and never have a time for a bio break, for a chance to blink our eyes? Or is it more effective to carve out 5 minutes in between so we can just breathe? I think if we have honest conversations with our teams and leaders about that, especially right now, we're going to find some interesting responses.
I love that. And that comes back to kindness too, like you said earlier.
Yep. So I mentioned this word effectiveness. One way to be really effective is to properly manage your collaboration during a meeting, because you're trying to move people and projects from point A to point B. So you've got to be thoughtful about how are we going to manage collaboration. But there is a severe lack of expectation setting for people. And if you're like, collaboration, I don't really need collaboration for this. Again, Do you need this meeting? Would it have been better for you to do a video update, to record a quick 20-minute message and send it out to your teams? It's something that we've got at Duarte. Our CEO, Nancy Duarte, used to send email updates around COVID-19, and then she flipped over to video updates, and oh my gosh, I love them. They're fabulous.
They are. She just looks at a camera, turns on Zoom, hits the record button, and talks to us for 10 minutes. And then we all watch when we get 10 minutes. She just wants us to hear the message right from her, and it's great. She's so authentic. She's just talking to us. They're really effective, and I think they're more effective than if we were all in the room. If for that 10-minute update, they're great. That's a great tip, Megan.
So the same way you're the mentor of this meeting, we want you to use that power to properly direct your participants. And that only happens if you have set goals and objectives. If you are having meetings and you have not thought through the goals and objectives, how could you ever ask other people to take an active role in the process? And a little caveat here, if you are defaulting to any questions, randomly throughout meetings you're leading at places where there would be zero questions involved, please stop using that as your crutch phrase or the filler word that you go back to. If you think there's a reason someone would have asked a question there, cue them up with the context. Like, this process was tricky for me the first time I read through it, so I want to see if it's sticking for anybody else. That's going to generate much better interaction than any questions, and then people aren't going to have anything to answer. So put that in your cap.
I also heard a tip from someone once that said asking any questions is so open-ended. It's very easy to not participate. But if you say, what questions do you have? Then that triggers people who do have a question chambered and they just didn't want to share it. Then it pulls them forward a little bit. It's being more of a mentor. It's being more of a mentor to them.
Now, there are lots of ways to get people to collaborate, but you have to tell them. You have to tell them how to collaborate, and you have to tell them when. These platforms let you chat. They let you raise a hand. They let you unmute and remute. But if you haven't told your participants how you want them to interact with you, how are they supposed to know what you want them to do? But you also have to tell them when. Cue them up. Is there going to be Q&A halfway through? Should I interject in the middle of this meeting, unmute, and tell you something that I want to do now? Are there going to be multiple checkpoints throughout the meeting? I had this happen this week. I had 4 separate meetings with 4 different stakeholders on a project. And when I got in the meeting, I said, hey, everyone, we only got 25 minutes. So I am going to ask your feedback 4 times, once after every main point. And then at the end, I'm going to ask if there are any examples I left out. And guess what happened? 2 of those meetings finished early. The other 2 finished on time. Now, yes, I'm a fast talker. I think it is the Detroiter in me. So I move quickly through things, but those expectations helped me get what I needed to move my project, but it helped make sure it was a meaningful interaction from our participants.
I love that. And I have to say, I chair a meeting every week, and I couldn't make it last week. And I asked Megan to facilitate for me. And I gave her, I think, 3 objectives. Here's what I wanted to accomplish this meeting. They were pretty light. And the recap and the completed objectives I got back were amazing. She drove through all of those. This really works. And Megan's particularly skilled at it at Duarte. So I love hearing that.
Well, thank you, Doug. Part of the reason we were able to accomplish so much is because of the in-collaboration tools. All of these different platforms have tools. Doug, you've become the wizard of these collaboration tools. We're actually going to talk a lot about them more in an upcoming one of these come-togethers, but give people a quick hit at some of the collaboration tools that are our favorite.
Sure. Yeah, we have a lot of wizards at Duarte that really get into using these collaboration tools. Every platform has its own sort of character of what things are cool to use. So Zoom, for instance, has some neat annotation features that the audience can use. They can put hearts on the screen and check marks. We can also do breakout rooms in Zoom. That's been very effective for some of our virtual workshops. Several of the platforms have whiteboard spaces where people can add things onto a canvas that everyone sees. That's really useful. Almost all of them have a chat feature. And there's lots of different ways to use that chat feature. We're using it for questions and comments today, but you can control how people use that and use that as an effective communication tool. Then you have external tools where you can have your audio and video in whatever platform you're using for that. And you can use a separate tool, like, for instance, Google Docs or Office 365, where you're collaborating on document, a spreadsheet, a presentation, and you're all in that document at the same time and able to talk through things. And we've also been using a tool called Miro or Miro. I'm not convinced of the correct pronunciation, but it's sort of an infinite canvas with lots of collaboration tools that everyone can be in at the same time. And we've got some folks here who we'll bring in on an upcoming webinar to show you how that works. There's some really interesting things you can do on that you can't do on other tools. So there's so much out there that you can take advantage of to do that collaboration.
Our last tip for you with respect to collaboration is about putting your expectations in that meeting invite. If you are leading meetings and are not sending agendas, oh my, let's start there. Baseline, send an agenda every time you're leading a meeting. But if we really take it up a level, this would give you an opportunity to tell them, I want you to come in with your video on or not. Put it in the invite. It'll be right there. Let them know if they're going to have to go off mute. I know we've got people at home with a lot of chaos going on and they're juggling so much. So they're joining, not realizing they're going to be asked to go off mute. Let them know that this is happening. Tell them if there's a pre-read. Should they come if they can't read the pre-read? You're the leader. You decide if they should come to that meeting or not.
I love that. And this one is a game changer. The people who are diligent, like Dr. Maegan, about adding invites and expectations, adding expectations in the invites. Those are generally the same people who get what they want from the meeting. So if you take one tip from this webinar that can change your meeting effectiveness, it's this one. Put agenda, including directions, in the invite. Okay, Maegan, we're going to turn to Q&A in just a couple minutes, which is a reminder to all of you to get in your questions if you haven't already. And that was us setting expectations at the beginning, by the way, if you didn't figure that out. Maegan, what final recommendations do you have for us?
All right, I am going to get through these quickly because I want to hear your questions. We want you to get results. We're here to help you. We never want someone to be in a meeting with you and leave and say, I didn't really need to be in this meeting. So you have to be responsible here. And so if the meeting doesn't go well or you don't get something done, that is on you. And I don't mean to be harsh, maybe a little harsh, but we've got some great responsibility that comes with this power of leading the meetings. So here are 3 quick tips for you. Number 1 is that you really need to be realistic. This is hard. Collaboration takes a longer time in virtual settings. There's cringy crosstalk. I muted. Oh, wait, I didn't mute. I forgot. You don't know who's there. People are multitasking. Spoiler alert, we're bad multitaskers. So this is hard. Be realistic about what can be accomplished. Tip number 2, we want you to really move with the silence. So here's what's interesting. Nobody likes silence when they're presenting. 1 second of silence as a presenter was feeling like 10 seconds of silence. And the audience is thinking, no, not really, man. That was not so long. It's worse in the virtual setting for some reason. So we're going to ask you to sit in that silence, allow it to happen, give your adult brains time to process, and let's not chastise people if they don't ask questions right away. Our last tip for you today is send that recap. We've already talked about the agenda. That should make it easy. And if you could send that recap, maybe in these new 5 or 10 minutes you found yourself with after the end of the meeting, why, that might be really great. So that gives you a long series of recommendations and tips that we have. We'll put out a blog so that you've got some of this stuff in writing for you too. But I'm ready. I'm ready to hear what the people got to say, Doug.
Okay, one more thing before we move to Q&A. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't share with people some of the other ways we can help in the ways you communicate virtually in your life and in your job. So we have 4 self-paced e-courses at Duarte, where you have video lessons and worksheets and all kinds of content from our methodologies to work through at your own pace. They range from 90 minutes to 4 hours. They cover story, design, and delivery. There are 3 new packages of virtual speaker coaching that you can get from Duarte. That's one-on-one training with a coach. Maegan and I are both speaker coaches, and virtual speaker coaching sessions are incredibly effective. It's really comforting to have someone in your corner helping you get ready for that next presentation, virtual or otherwise. We have 3 different packages available. And over this last month, we have moved mountains to make our in-person workshops available virtually, and they are. That's Visual Story, Data Story, Resonate, and Captivate. They're available to the public right now, including our newest course we're so excited about, Captivate, which is our public speaking delivery course. Captivate for virtual communicating is designed to help you communicate better in virtual settings. So I know I speak for everyone at Duarte when I say how excited we are to share all of this work with you. And we'd love you to get a chance to experience some of it. So visit us at duarte.com. If you got questions, put them in the chat. We can put you on a mailing list so you get more invites from us. But check those out. All right, let's move to Q&A. We're happy to answer any questions you have. I'm going to move up to my chat window here and go back a little bit. I'm going back to work after being on maternity leave, not me, but the person asking the question. And the kicker, going to new role with a new boss and new team. Any tips for how to navigate effectively while trying to connect with a new team and jumping into this new virtual landscape? And it's from Stephanie. Great.
I love this question. This is great. I would say spend some time crafting that empathetic opening message you want to deliver during your first meeting. So sometimes we don't put a lot of thought into the introduction we're giving for ourselves. And even when we do, we really think a lot about ourselves, not about the people on the other end. So if we think about not all of the chaos and hecticness that's happening for you, but what the world's like for them right now, that they are experiencing you after a break, they are experiencing you as a new leader, that framework might change some of the ways you might choose to introduce yourself. And I would spend time crafting that content. You don't have to write it out word for word, but maybe if that's your style, you do to get all your thoughts down. And then I practiced it. I'd practice it either with a coach or I'd ask a friend to say, hey, I've got a meeting this week virtually. Can I jump on a call with you first and practice this opening? I want to get your feedback. And some people would say, Maegan, it sounds like a lot of overkill. I don't think for an important moment like the one you're describing, I don't think it's overkill. And I also think it'll reduce some of your anxiety.
I love that. And congratulations and welcome back to work, Stephanie. We've got a question from Catronelle. Sometimes that check-in at the beginning of the meeting that we mentioned can get out of hand and we end up chatting for too long. Any ideas for how to transition and how soon? I feel a little responsible for this one, so I'll answer. This is where you're being a mentor is really important because it's not just everyone chatting. It's not everyone just talking off of the top of their head. You're posing a direct question to each individual in the meeting. And so you need to interrupt if necessary and ask them a question or find a way to take the floor back. But keep it clear that this is a question from me to you and I'd like you to answer and then give time for the next person to answer. It takes some work and it's something a coach could work on you with, but moving around that room and getting a specific answer from everyone is really what you're trying to do, not set up a chit-chat session. Okay, a question from Elizabeth. What do you think about scheduling phone meetings instead of video meetings all of the time? Maegan?
I'm pursing my lips. It's not my favorite. It's not going to be my favorite right now. I might have a different response if you asked me this 7 weeks ago. But if I am leading the meeting, I am going to lead it via the platform that I'm using, and I'm going to turn my video camera on. And I'm not going to make them turn it on, but I'm going to do it because I'm the leader and I'm the mentor, and I want to help them see a human face right now because I don't know how many other human faces they're seeing right now. So that's my preference. And then I get it. I'm in calls sometimes where no one decides we're turning on the camera. And I'm like, haha, I'm not turning it on. I'm going to go sit on the couch. And if I'm not leading the meeting, I'm probably not turning on the camera. But if I'm in charge, part of me setting the stage properly is I'm going to turn it on.
Love that. We've got another question from Daniel. As a leader, what can we say or do to support and recognize those who are really struggling with the kids and the dogs creating distractions right now? What can you do as a leader of that meeting?
I've got two thoughts on that. My first thought is if you're actually in a meeting with another colleague that has children running around or you can hear them or there's noise, acknowledge it. So we have quite a few colleagues who have children at home, and when I see a little in the background, I will stop what I'm doing and say, who's back there? Who's back there? And I will take a minute out of the meeting to have a little bit of a conversation about what's going on in the world so that I'm not making the person feel like they have to pretend that there are not toddlers running around and screaming. So that helps you in the moment. But if you're setting those expectations broader or trying to put policies or telling people about the guidelines, send that video update. That's very empathetic and very thoughtful about the flexibility that we are all going through this time, and let people on your team know that you are here for them and you are being flexible and that we're asking everyone to be flexible right now. I am touched most days, I'm like going to cry, about how thoughtful humans are mean to each other. Oh, Doug, take it over.
All right, I'll take it over. Thoughtful and kind, just like you said at the beginning. Well, we're at the end of our time, and part of the host's job is to honor that time boundary. I know we have more questions, so I'd encourage you all to come back next week, and we'll get to more questions if we can. And I'd just like to thank Dr. Maegan Stevens for joining us this morning.
As I wipe tears from my face.
You've shown so much empathy for everyone who's meeting virtually right now, and we appreciate all the expertise and advice and just your way of being today. So thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you next week. Same time, same sandbox.